Now on ChessKid, Funmaster Mike does not approve of thievery, but I'm stealing an idea from my friend Levy. Gotham Chess loves to do a segment called Guess the ELO, but I'm pretty sure on his show, what happens is someone shows him a game and he tries to guess the ELO from the game. I may be getting that wrong, but on our ChessKid version, I know the ELO. I'm going to ask you, dear viewer, to try to guess what it is. Now, before I get to the game, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because if you guys watch this video a lot, I might just do it again. Okay, ELO is just a fancy word for international rating. I'm basically asking you to guess the ChessKid rating. And this is a game that I played. I was black, but you might know what my rating is. I'm more interested in you figuring out what is white's rating. So here we go. Okay, solid start. I like to play my modern defense. And after d4, I played bishop to g7. My opponent played knight f3. I played d6. All of this is pretty standard. White played the move knight c3. Now, even though white is developing in a very basic classical fashion, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. In fact, when I'm white and I play against the modern, I do this exact same thing. Now, after the move knight f6, we saw the first move that I don't see very often at Grandmaster Chess, which is bishop f4. It's not bad. It just turns out that this bishop is probably misplaced here. It's never going to be able to take this pawn. And if black ever plays the move e5 successfully, you're just going to lose a tempo on your bishop. There's even some lines where my knight might even come to a square like h5 and go after the bishop. So this bishop would be better off probably stopping on e3 or going all the way to g5, but it just doesn't really do anything on this square since it can't ever take that pawn. Okay, so I castled. And I guess my opponent maybe understood this and played bishop g5. Now, it's possible that my opponent mouse slipped and accidentally dropped the bishop on this square, but nonetheless, the bishop has now found a better square. Unfortunately, it cost white an extra tempo. Okay, so here, I like to sometimes go after this pawn because I've got a dark squared bishop. I've got a knight that can come here. I've got a pawn that can come to c5. So what I sometimes do is I pin this knight. That's what I did in the game, because if I take the knight, or if I at least pin it, that knight is not actually defending this pawn. Now, that does mean I sometimes give up the bishop pair, but it is in pursuit of a higher cause, which is to control those dark squares in the middle of the board. Now, my opponent took this knight. You're already starting to see that I'm probably not playing a master level opponent. That's okay. I'm playing promising ChessKid for sure. So the bishop went here, then it went here, then it took. That is 3 moves to capture my knight, which only moved once. That's kind of like throwing 2 moves away. And after I took back, you can see that black is actually ahead in development. Both sides have 2 minor pieces off the back row, but because black is castled and white is not even ready to castle, we would say that black is slightly ahead in development. And my opponent moved yet another piece for a second time without finishing the development. Probably if I were white, I'd play bishop to e2. What that does is it breaks the pin, and it also makes the queen not overworked anymore, because the queen won't be tied down to defense of the knight. The queen can focus on just defending this pawn. But anyway, this knight moved again. I wanted to keep my bishop pair, so I ran back. My opponent did play bishop to e2, and here I spotted an opportunity. Because my bishop is on a dark square lined up with this pawn, and white has no dark squared bishop left, I decided to go after the dark squares by first playing c6, forcing the knight backward. Now, in hindsight, the knight might want to go to this square just to win a tempo, because what happens is when the knight goes to c3, then I was able to play queen b6, and it's already very hard for white to defend this pawn and also to defend this pawn, because remember, I can often take this knight to win the d4 pawn. If white had a choice, white would love to give away the b pawn, because number 1, it's not a center pawn. And number 2, we've got a video on ChessKid describing that we sometimes call it the poisoned pawn. Because when the queen takes, sometimes she gets trapped, sometimes the rook comes to b1 and collects one of black's pawns on the next turn. I realize the knight is hanging, but all in all, white would rather lose the b pawn. In fact, there's almost a brilliant idea here by white. White can almost play this move knight to a4, which guards the pawn, tempos the queen, and does not give black a chance to win this pawn. However, if black checks, then the only move to save the knight and the king is either to push, so the queen defends, but then this move might very well trap the knight. Or white can move the knight back, and then I think the queen can sneak in. Notice how sneaky she's being. She went here, and then here, and then here. Now I know the queen has moved 3 times, but remember this knight has moved 3 times as well, and he just went there and back. So, if the knight wastes 2 moves, I think black can certainly waste 2 moves. And I think black is officially winning one of the pawns. Let's go back to the actual game. In this position, white played rook b1, and that allowed me to use my bishop here to win a pawn. I took the knight, white took back, I took. And now in this position, white needs to keep material on the board. That's the best way to try to make a comeback. But white decided to trade. Now I know against a higher rated player, sometimes you think that trading is getting you closer to, I don't know, some sort of equal or drawn game. But when you're down material, although you might be making the game last longer in terms of number of moves, you are reducing the ability to make a comeback when you trade in a worse position. So my opponent castled. I finished my development, played knight d7. My opponent attacked my knight, but that just allowed my knight to move again with tempo. So we're seeing a lot of times where white is moving a piece 2 or 3 times in the opening when white could have been getting the rooks in the game. Okay, now white played the move rook to d1, and that breaks one of my common rules. White answered an attack with an attack. But the problem is, if you answer an attack with an attack, it is your opponent that gets to make the first capture. You're probably already seeing what I can do. I saved my bishop by capturing the knight, and when white takes back, then I took a bishop, and I get 2 for 1, and I love things that are on sale. And the rest of the game, we'll just finish it out. My opponent played h3, I moved the knight, my opponent attacked. Okay, my knight had to run around the board a little bit, but now I anchored my knight on the outpost. There is no white pawn that can attack c4. Okay, hopefully you're getting your answer ready. I did manage to fork white here, and then I took, and I've got 2 rooks against 1. So when you've got 2 rooks and your opponent has 1, you want to create open files. So that's what I did, and I got my other rook in the game. I doubled my rooks, and now my rooks are going to play Pac-Man. And then a very simple win here. I just moved my rook sideways, and I've got 2 different mates, rook c1, rook b1. White cannot stop both of them. White did give a check, but I did not get mated. Rook moved, and then checkmate. Okay, chess kids. Now, you have to decide. Guess the elo. Guess the rating of the white player. Let's see if you can get within 100 points. If you do, you can give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, I hope you have your number. Why don't you say it out loud? I'm listening. Actually, I'm not. That would be weird. The rating of the white ChessKid player here was 1,246. And I think that's pretty reasonable. My opponent knew how to control the center and how to develop pieces. The weakness was, number 1, making too many moves with the same piece. And also, number 2, probably not really understanding how to deal with an unconventional opening like the modern, where I go after the dark squares. And then the last thing was, there was sort of that major error at the end where white answered an attack with an attack. But I see a lot of promise, and I think the next time I see this player play, maybe the rating will go higher. What about you, chess kids? Is your rating going up? I hope so.